Good evening. Welcome to Music Minute. I'm Kevin Barger, the Director of Music at Epiphany Lutheran Church in Richmond, Virginia, and we welcome you to this social persisting offering that we have to sort of listen to the hymns and get a head start on tomorrow's worship. Today we're going to start with This Is My Father's World, and this comes from our Presbyterian brothers and sisters. It was taken from a poem at the turn of the century, not the Y2K turn of the century, but 1901, so even a century back. And it originally was a poem of 16 stanzas. Again, we will not be singing 16 stanzas tomorrow of this hymn. In fact, there are only 3, and it makes up 6 of the original stanzas go together to make those 3 that we'll sing tomorrow. The writer of this served as a Presbyterian pastor in New York City, in Manhattan. He made house calls on his bicycle, so that was sort of something that was his claim to fame. Unfortunately, that pastor committed suicide due to the effects of Mediterranean fever that overtook his body. But both the text and the tune were written by friends in Baltimore. The same pastor who was in New York City spent time in Baltimore, and it is presumed, although not proven, that while they were friends, that's why this came together as it did. So this is My Father's World. one that I think we recognize fairly well, although people in my choirs tell me that I say that and then they don't know them. So maybe it's a bad omen for me to say that. Okay, our next hymn is Faith of Our Fathers, and this comes from the Roman Catholic tradition. And oftentimes the fathers that we see here are seen as patriotic heroes or militaristic or folk kinds of things, but actually the fathers were referring to priests, and hence the connection with the Roman Catholic tradition. Verse 3, when you sing it tomorrow, pay particular attention to, because it sort of does a move from past to present. So it's sort of the evolution, if you will, of what we feel. And it's intended to say that Christians still face persecutions, imprisonment, death for our faith. Particularly fitting, perhaps, right now with everything going on. Henry Hemme was the organist at a Roman Catholic church, and that goes along with the Roman Catholic background and roots for this. So this is Faith of Our Fathers. Maybe a little bit easier to find the melody in that one and hum along as you were listening. So for our last song, we're going to flip over to the organ. And this is one I'm sure we know. It is Rise Up, O Saints of God. This goes back to Presbyterian roots. So this was written in 1911, so a little bit after the last one, This Is My Father's World. It was originally written as Rise Up, O Men of God, and so you can imagine that that had been criticized as being sexist. But if you consider back to the actual origins of this hymn, it was written for the Presbyterian Brotherhood movement, and so that's made sense, and that's why they had the men. However, O Saints of God came later, and that was first published in our old hymnal, the green one, Lutheran Book of Worship, LBW. The tune writer was at Episcopal and Presbyterian churches, and he was also the organist at Trinity Church in New York City. So some of you may have a connection to that, and I've heard of Trinity Church, certainly. So this is Rise Up, O Saints of God, and I had to get a little help from Turner. He's going to turn pages for me today. joy you can feel in there and just feel the saints' presence with us. So that's wonderful. So thank you for joining me this evening. Please make sure to mark your calendar for next week. We might have a little surprise. There might be somewhat of a field trip in next week's Music Minute. That's what I'll give you, and hopefully that will bait you to come back at 7 o'clock next Saturday evening here on Facebook Live or our YouTube channel. Tomorrow morning, we of course have worship at 10:30 on those same channels, and we also have our coffee and donuts at 9 o'clock, and the Apostles' Creed Bible study will continue at 9 o'clock as well, and that information has been sent to our members. So thank you very much, and have a good evening.